Here are RotoWire's top 12 fantasy football rankings for the 2024 season. Number 1, Christian McCaffery of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, McCaffrey's averaged 334 touches over the last 2 seasons, and he'll still be 28 years old, so there should be some prime left in his career. Now, in terms of fantasy, McCaffrey played 19 games, including the NFL playoffs last year. On only 4 occasions did McCaffrey have fewer than 20 PPR points. McCaffrey still checks in with a 79th percentile broken tackle rate, 85th percentile yards after contact, so still an elite player. Number 2, Ceedee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, last year during the Week 6 bye, it seemed very apparent that Dallas realized they lacked a sustaining rushing attack. So what did they do? They went past heavy. And they also moved Ceedee Lamb all around the formation to optimize the matchups he was seeing. Week 7 on, Ceedee Lamb goes for at least 110 yards in 7 of 12 games, and he scored 11 touchdowns during that span. Dallas only adds Ezekiel Elliott to their running back room, so we will likely see a continuation of that pass-heavy approach. And don't be surprised if Ceedee Lamb comes out of this with 190 targets. Number 3, Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. Hill has played 2 seasons with coach Mike McDaniel, and Hill has just been incredible for fantasy. Now, last year, Tyreek Hill was banged up in the second half of the season, and it kept him from that possible 2,000-yard season he really seemed like he was going to get. In the 2 years in Miami, Tyreek Hill's averaged 1,755 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 170 targets. Projecting Hill for a 3rd season of that seems to make sense. Now, Hill will be 30 this season, but he has yet to show any decline of that game-changing speed. Now, before we continue, if you like videos like this, consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel. Now on to number 4. Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Jefferson struggled with injuries last year, we know that, but still, his production on a per-game basis, the same player we knew from 2021 and 2022 when he was averaging over 1,700 yards and 9 touchdowns. Now, Kirk Cousins is gone. We understand that. But remember, all right, J.J. McCarthy, Sam Darnold, we don't know what we'll get out of them, but Jefferson did have 4 games at the end of last season with backup quarterbacks, and his production did not fall off drastically from the Kirk Cousins days. In those 4 games, Jefferson averaged 7.5 catches, 119 yards, a half a touchdown, and 11 targets. The talent is unquestioned. Don't hesitate to go after Justin Jefferson early in the first round. Number 5, Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Chase really proved his greatness last year by going for over 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. With Joe Burrow starting out the season extremely limited with that calf injury, Jake Browning closing out the season, Chase had to live on a 25th percentile average depth of target. He was able to definitely kill that with a 76th percentile yards after the catch. That yards per target's definitely going to increase with a healthy Burrow this year. Now, the last time we saw Burrow and Chase together in 2021 fully healthy, Chase posted 1,455 yards and 13 touchdowns. Still keep seeing at least 10 targets in most games. That scoring floor is going to be insanely high each week. Number 6, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Brown has had 2 similar years of production during his 2 years in Philadelphia. His average, 96 catches, 1,476 yards, and 9 touchdowns. But last year, A.J. Brown was on pace about halfway through the season for 2,000 yards. Why did his pace fall off? Last year's offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, was overmatched. Once defenses began to figure out downfield passing, they slowed it down. The offensive coordinator had no adjustments for that. Now in comes Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore uses downfield shots to open up things underneath. A.J. Brown can run every route in the book, and he can win in so many ways. He's going to flirt with 150 targets again, variety of routes. He may not see enough targets to be the very number 1 receiver in fantasy football, but in his current situation, he should be a top 5 receiver. Number 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Now, St. Brown has improved significantly in each year of his career. He's a great slot receiver, and in this age of zone-heavy defenses, St. Brown is an ideal fit. Of course, he has Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, Jared Goff, the quarterback. both love the middle of the field. Amon-Ra St. Brown posted 1,515 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 163 targets last season. It is very difficult to think that his numbers rise beyond that. Number 8, Breece Hall of the New York Jets.
Now remember last year, Breece Hall
was recovering from an ACL. He played very sparingly during the first 4 games of the season. From week 5 on, Hall was a league winner. It was a terrible Jets offense. One of the worst offenses in the league with no offensive line to speak of. The quarterback play was horrific, stacked boxes, and Hall still averaged 4.5 yards per carry. Now, last year, fantasy gold because of his receiving. From week 5 on, Hall had 8 games with at least 5 catches, 7 times. He goes over 40 yards, and he caught 5 touchdown passes. Now, this year's going to be different. He's not going to see that immense pass game volume. But Aaron Rodgers is back. Tyrod Taylor is the backup, so they have a capable backup. The offensive line was upgraded in free agency. We will see Breece Hall dominate as a runner, chip in as a receiver. He is going to have a great season in 2024. Number 9, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Robinson wasn't what many hoped for last year, and usage was an issue for Bijan Robinson. Only 20 carries one time. 13 different games, 15 or fewer carries. Zach Robinson comes in to run the offense from the Rams. If Zach Robinson brings the Rams style of last year, it's going to be amazing for Bijan Robinson. They feature their top running back. If Bijan Robinson steps into that same role, elite talent, very good offensive line, a passing attack that teams have to look out for. And remember, Robinson had 1,463 yards and 8 touchdowns in a rougher situation last year. Things are going to get much better this year. Number 10, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. Now, Wilson's had horrible quarterback play in his career, averaging 158 targets, but off-target passes lowered his catch rate. Passes behind him lowered his yards after the catch. Still gets 1,073 yards and 3.5 touchdowns over those 2 seasons, but now Aaron Rodgers, and again, if he gets hurt, Tyrod Taylor, an offensive line, things are looking up for Garrett Wilson. Number 11, Puka Nakua of the Los Angeles Rams. Nakua set rookie records last year. Those don't even include the 181 yards he had in the playoff game against the Rams. But Nakua goes for 1,486 and 6 touchdowns with a crazy 86th percentile after the catch. Sean McVay, the coach, just schemes Nakua open quickly. In the last 4 games, Nakua goes for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp down the stretch was a non-factor. It looks like Nakua is stepping into that number 1 role. And number 12, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. Remember, Gibbs shared that backfield with David Montgomery last year, yet still, Gibbs goes for 1,250 yards and 11 touchdowns. And it wasn't until week 10 that Gibbs took over the backfield lead from Montgomery. Gibbs goes for 5.2 yards per carry, 96th percentile in breaking tackles, 78th percentile yards after contact, and he was not optimized as a receiver. The coaching staff did not figure out how to get his explosiveness used there. The workload was up in the second half of the season. The talent is elite. Jahmyr Gibbs belongs in the first round of fantasy football drafts.